Hello, everyone, and I'd like to say hello to our guests as well. The previous session was a very good setup for our talk. I really cannot keep my excitement down, being as a technologist and implementer, being in the 21st century and really experiencing what we're going through. If you would believe, double entry bookkeeping was a big innovation in 14th century, 700 years ago. Now we're in 21st century, and after 700 years, now we're going into distributed ledger technology, and we will be the ones who would be doing that. The introduction was great, but again, I have Kylie from Chainlink and Yiğit from BT Guru. Both of them are implementers globally as well as locally here in Turkey. So we will be talking a little bit about hows and whats of tokenization, mostly from a technology and implementation standpoint. Listen, we have a very good captive audience here, consisting of regulators, bankers, fintech players, academicians. They're all pretty smart, they're knowledgeable about their area, but we're now entering into a new world. So from your perspective, I would really like to hear from you one more time. You know, what's this craze about tokenization? Can you bring it up in a, explain it in some layman's terms, what it is and why are we excited? Kylie, I'd like to start out with you if possible.
Sure. So when we think about tokenization, one of the most exciting topics is around collateral mobility. So when you're able to take an asset that is conventionally or traditionally illiquid and is relatively immobile, we can think about real estate potentially. When you tokenize it, you then have the capacity to actually use it in other contexts, to use it as collateral in loans. So this is very expansive. You actually have the potential to vastly expand the global collateral pool. I think the panel previously was talking about the amount of gold in reserve that lots of people in Turkey have. And so imagine the power of that being able to be put to use and how, from like a money multiplier perspective, how much that can filter down. To give another real world example, if we think for a minute about money market funds. So a money market fund is obviously a very, very popular investment asset from the perspective of it has a lot of liquidity, it's relatively stable, it has a yield, of course, but if you wanted to, and obviously therefore there are lots of different corporations and institutions that use money market funds as a store of cash and value. But if you wanted to then use that as collateral, you would have to go through you'd have to transpose and redeem that investment into cash, which is a pretty cumbersome process. It's operationally inefficient, and whilst you're holding that asset in cash for the purposes of using it as collateral, you're also not earning any return on it whatsoever. Whereas if you were to tokenize that fund, you can keep it in its form and start to use it as collateral without having to lose any of the yield and without having to go through a really heavy operational process. So alongside potentially widening the collateral pool by tokenizing, you also have the capacity to vastly improve the efficiency of how securities that are already used as collateral are actually are used. So you can, for example, stand to benefit from being able to move your collateral around and settle it on a 24-hour, 7 days a week schedule, as opposed to having to wait for very kind of regional specific windows of when you can settle a transaction, which obviously causes information asymmetries. And I think another really important aspect of this is to think about the potential for settlement compression. In the banking community, the cost of funding and the cost of liquidity has increased has kept on increasing for quite a few years. And so when you have a security that is tied up in a 2-day or 3-day settlement window, it's very expensive, it's not being used. If you can compress that, there's a potential huge cost saving across the entire banking industry. And you have the potential also to reduce all of the types of risks that you face when you are settling. So market risk, volatility risk, counterparty risk. So again, the potential to be able to move collateral around with a settlement of, I mean, we talk about atomically, close to atomically, so maybe within minutes. Within minutes is still like a huge improvement, of course, on the day cycle that we're used to. And then lastly on this, I think I've touched upon areas where existing structures can be made more efficient. When you're tokenizing real-world assets and securities, you also have the capacity to open up completely new business lines. So when I've been talking a bit about collateral and lending, if you look at repo, this is a traditionally, of course, overnight product. When you are able to tokenize it, we're starting to be able to look at intraday repo, which is, again, very powerful, a completely new, potentially completely new business line.
Okay, I mean, it all makes sense. So to sum it up, we talked about collateral mobility, increased liquidity, settlement compression, and on top of that, taking the capability to be able to take some of the existing products and transform them to be used 7/24. It all makes sense. What do you think, Yiğit? Are there other areas that we can talk about RWA tokenization?
I'm going to be covering from a broader perspective. Like Kylie mentioned, it's about liquidity, accessibility, transparency and security, along with speed and efficiency. But for example, liquidity is a really important point here. You need buyers and sellers to form a marketplace, and that marketplace needs players. Okay, the higher the players, the pure the liquidity is. So liquidity is the key, and it's really important. But it is easier with the tokenized assets to reach out to the pure good amount of liquidity. When you compare it to the traditional finance, because it takes time for the traditional finance, convince the buyers and the sellers about the assets, how they are going to benefit over those, and then they are going to start buying and selling and trading, and then you're actually going to be reaching out to a point that, okay, this is a good marketplace. So you can actually achieve this goal really fast and quick with the tokenization. That's why it's really important. So the next thing is accessibility. So it's a 24/7, no more waiting for T+2, T+4 days. And it's a global market. You can actually create this token and somebody else across the world can actually buy it. So you don't need to be, within your jurisdiction, your region, or in your country. It's really easy to reach out to those assets. And also there is the, painful paperwork. If, for example, as a Turkish citizen, if I wanted to buy Tesla stock, it's going to be really hard for me to, get in the US, find the, appropriate company who's going to be advising me, asset management company, etc., whatever. Then I'm going to be, dealing with the paperwork. Then I'm going to be asked to, buy a really huge amount of, Tesla stock, because you can actually not buy it with smaller, caps, all right? That's actually bringing us to another point, that it's a kind of a, democratic way to, have those assets like that.
Okay.
So, and the speed and the efficiency, we actually mentioned that. It's 24/7, no more waiting. Okay. So it's like that.
Again, so besides the liquidity, you talked about ease of access, 7/24. And the capability to fractionalize an asset really democratizes, actually increases the participation of the whole population as well. Okay, I think, again, with the addition of the previous session and with these two discussions, we have established the need for, the explanation for excitement to tokenize. But let's talk a little bit about how it is to be done, because now that we're excited, we need to take action, right? So where do we start? Chainlink, for example, is very well positioned because globally they partner with the largest players, the financial institutions, networks such as SWIFT and others, to go about to start the revolution, actually. So I'd really like to understand who is going to go first. What assets are going to start to be tokenized? Where will we be seeing these? It will be great to hear from you, Kylie, what you guys are doing globally, and maybe inspire us to take the actions over here.
Sure. So we are seeing a lot of demand for, as I mentioned previously, a money market fund tokenization because of the obvious utility. But I think we need to talk a little bit about how this is going to come about and what we need to think about to make sure that this movement is successful. And so another topic that was touched upon in the earlier discussion was trust. So if you're tokenizing an asset, you need to ensure that that asset has utility and as much an equal utility as the conventional asset, otherwise people aren't going to utilize it. And for that, you need to be able to enrich that asset with data from the real world, and that data needs to be trustworthy. Otherwise, like I said, there can't be any asymmetry. That asset on blockchain needs to be the source of truth. So let me give you some examples of the type of data that needs to be that we need to be thinking about when we're tokenizing assets. Again, with the money market fund example. For that money market fund to appropriately be valued, you need to get a net asset value, a NAV price point from the real world and bring it on chain, embed it into the token. Actually, this is something that Chainlink Labs has done with DTCC last year, as well as with Sygnum Bank and Fidelity International. Another very good example when you're talking about what types of data we need within a tokenized asset, we can talk about stablecoins. I mean, stablecoins are, in effect, a tokenization of whatever the underlying security is that backs that stablecoin. We have at Chainlink a product called Proof of Reserve, which is a data feed, excuse me, that can check and look and read the quantity of, for example, gold that is backing a gold-backed stablecoin, and ensure that the tokens that are being minted on chain are commensurate with what are in custody. In fact, we can even embed that feed into the tokenization smart contract, which is something called securement. A real-world example or a live example of the utility of that product that we worked on, again, I think it was last year, is Bancolombia and Buenia launched a Colombian peso-backed stablecoin, and our proof of reserve technology is being used to ensure, like I said, that there are commensurate reserves with what is on chain. So just to reiterate, the tokenization will be useful as long as those tokens have utility. We need information to be able to make sure they are enriched with what makes them useful, and it is really important that the way that that data is disseminated is trustworthy. The technology that we use at Chainlink Labs is all based around oracles, which are a decentralized oracle structure for sourcing data, coming to consensus on that data, and disseminating it on chain in a super reliable way. So I think that this is a very important focus for how tokenization is going to happen.
Okay, so I'm a employee of a traditional finance company, and I want to, develop tokenized products, digital assets. So one of the things I will start thinking about is, okay, if I'm going to go create a token, it needs to have utility that just like you have said. So utility means it needs to present the real world. So how do we get the information about that? Oracles are going to help us. So again, as an implementer, I know that now I need an oracle. I need to go out to the world and find the real value of that asset. And then, of course, I need to be able to show everyone, make them trust on the product. So proof of reserve is another way of showing that that asset is really under the custody of the custodian, right? So these are the components we have to start putting around to make this happen. Now, Yiğit, you guys are really in the trenches implementing these solutions from end to end. What is your experience? How will this happen? When I say how will this happen, I'm talking about how traditional finance world will transforming itself into decentralized finance.
Yeah, I mean, first we need a paradigm shift, right?
Okay.
So, in the traditional finance, we get used to doing, things in a way that we are actually doing them for the last 20, 30 years. Mm-hmm. So this is the Web3 space and the blockchain environment, the tokens, the coins, everything else it's a new thing. So it starts with the paradigm shift. The financial institutions, the business units, the professionals, they need to, first forget about what they know. They need to, embrace it like it's a new material, new information coming in, and they need to build the knowledge, and then they can actually check for the resemblance, what they have been doing for the past 20, 30 years on the, traditional finance side, so they can actually connect the dots afterwards. So it starts with the paradigm shift. And then when we look at our market, Turkey, we talked about the liquidity. For example, we have 26 million users who have wallets, etc., like that. About $200 billion of trading volume per year. So, good, talents over there who are capable of bringing out new, products, etc. And, the market structure and the players are ready, and it's there. Mm-hmm. So I believe we're just going to be needing, brave financial institutions to come out and start, experimenting this. And I believe we're going to see it soon.
Well, okay, makes sense. I mean, you said the transformation will be done by the people who have been around in this industry 20 to 30 years. I brought it up, I brought the experience back up 700 years, but you're right. I mean, we will be doing this with the people who have been around, and that requires a paradigm shift. But you feel that it is ready, the ecosystem is ready now to take the steps, and we're needing some courageous and curious minds to make this happen. Okay, that I understand, but I'd like to dig one more level deeper, right? So again, we have the traditional finance professionals here. What kind of banking systems or what kind of components that already exist can be utilized to make this happen? I mean, do we have to scrap out and throw out everything, or are there things that we can rely on? What do you see, Kylie, globally?
I would say definitely not.
Yeah.
And actually, at Chainlink Labs, we don't believe that the world is going to suddenly flip to being everything's tokenized tomorrow. I mean, obviously not. And there are traditional and existing financial market infrastructures that are extremely sticky and extremely embedded into many different processes that the entire financial industry is running on. So you can't just switch those off or hope to be able to eradicate them. And we don't actually intend to or expect that that will happen. And we don't think that that is a sensible approach. And one of the partners that Chainlink Labs works with very closely is actually SWIFT. Mm-hmm. We have been working and partnering with them for the last 6 years. And last year we worked on a DVP proof of concept with SWIFT. where we integrated with the SWIFT messaging protocol. We integrated, a blockchain infrastructure with the SWIFT messaging protocol. We were able to process a DBP where the delivery of the asset was done on chain, but where the payment was processed via SWIFT messages.
Okay.
So that entire holistic transaction was a interconnectivity of existing and new infrastructure. So we think this is very, very important, and integration is, and enabling integration with existing systems, I think, is a strong enabler for the movement forward of this market, as of course is interoperability. I mean, we're talking about a form of interoperability when we talk about integration, but all of the benefits that we've been discussing on this panel so far don't really come to fruition if you're operating in silos,
sure, by
definition. So the unlock, of course, is interop, and even when you think about what would encourage, if you put the hat on of somebody who's thinking about tokenizing, what would encourage them to do so, having to worry about finding a protocol that has the most liquidity or the most volume is a blocker. Whereas if you are aware that you can tokenize natively cross-chain via using some kind of interop solution, then that is lesser of a concern. I think we are moving in the right direction when it comes to evolving existing infrastructures for tokenization.
Well, if you pause a minute and think just about it, every single bank or financial institution has its own database, right? So these are islands. And now we're talking about interoperability. You know, you see this happening, right? That's what I wanted to just ensure. I mean, let's that sinking, guys. I mean, Kylie has exemplified interoperability through a decades-old messaging platform, SWIFT. If SWIFT is a part of this, for example, other banking components, finance components can be used as well. So it is doable, right? So we can have our audience trust this and, you know, go into this with a little bit of courage and, you know, yeah. So it is doable. You're seeing this happen, right? Okay, I mean, so do you have some examples that you see from the implementations you are being a part of? What kind of banking components are usable, or, you know, what can we rely on without changing too much?
Yeah, interoperability is important, and yes, those systems can be used, but everybody is actually talking about the core custody infrastructure or marketplace infrastructure or an exchange core.
Yeah.
So, okay, you have those systems, but how you are going to integrate those systems into your, you know, core systems? Mm-hmm. For example, if it's a core banking, how you are going to be running that in a smooth way that's going to be less friction between those software tools and systems. So you need a kind of a layer which needs to sit on top of those, you know, infrastructures, so that everything is going to be really, you know, well designed, and it needs to, you know, each and every bit and piece of data needs to flow between those, you know, systems in a kind of a way that it's not going to, you know, create any friction. Mm-hmm. And it can actually then start, you know, getting interacted with the real data outside of the, you know, Web3 ecosystem or the universe, so to speak. So those systems and those integrations are really important and needs to be taken care of. But this is something else that, you know, we're actually missing about. That's a piece of detail which is really crucial. Those systems are there, they can be used, they can be combined, and it's going to be really easy for us, for the financial institutions, to run their operations like that, but that needs to be taken care of really well. So that's also a kind of a point that needs to be spoken.
Okay. You basically discussing with you really added to my confidence to jump into this. I hope we have also conveyed the message to our audience as well. Folks, both Kylie and Yeet are pretty experienced alongside with their companies. I would encourage you to reach out to them through LinkedIn or maybe outside having over chat over coffee and present your questions. Thank you for listening to us. We're on time now.
Yep. Thank you.
Take care.